Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's exactly 36 minutes past 4 p.m. Central African time. You are tuned into Salam Media. This is, of course, the weekend edition of the Iftaar Drive, and it's time once again for us to connect with Dr. Yvonne Ridley. She's coming to us live from the UK, and she joins us now to discuss the latest news in the Muslim world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the show once again, Doctor.
Walaikum salam. Great to be back.
All right, so today's the 11th of Ramadan already. Its time has flown by quite quickly. How has it been for you?
Yes, it certainly has. But there's been a lot of things happening in the world today. And so I think we've got quite a packed schedule to get through.
Yes, indeed. I think there's quite a bit to discuss today as well. So first of all, the first story that we're going to be looking at today. Now, the Saudi Arabia and Iran, these two countries don't really get along very well. And now they are holding talks, and the region is actually holding their breath for these talks. Tell us about this.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Well, apparently, Saudi and Iran had what could be termed as peace talks, because you're right, they don't get along. There's quite a lot of animosity between the two, but alhamdulillah, they have been talking during Ramadan, and apparently they are planning more direct talks, maybe even this month, although no date has been set. But this really needed to happen, and I am so pleased that both Riyadh and Tehran have put aside their rivalry just to even sit in the same room and talk, and this is a huge achievement. And is it a sign of things to come, some regional stability? Because Saudi, being the Sunni Muslim power, and Iran, which is the Shiite power, they've locked horns and played out a lot of proxy wars right across the Middle East and North African region, and it's about time that these two did more jaw than war. Let's not get into the blame game. Let's praise them both for at least sitting down and talking and planning more talks. It's very important that these two get along and we start to have some stability in the region.
And of course, Iraq is actually mediating these conversations. So, just briefly, what are you expecting to come out of these talks? Anything fruitful?
Well, the very fact that they've just sat down and talked offers a great hope. They cut their diplomatic ties back in 2016, and so I'm just virtually speechless that they actually have been able to get together, and well done for Iraq to host these mediation talks. And it could take a long time. There's a lot of bitterness there, but the fact that they're sitting in, I'm as excited about this as I was when the Northern Ireland peace talks began. And of course, there was months, if not years, of preparation just to lead to those talks. And the fact that Iran's envoy to Baghdad has publicly welcomed the Iraqi mediation to mend ties with these two countries. It's just great news. I can't see anything out of this other than positive news.
And I think, of course, that optimism, I hope it does, bear some fruit later on, in terms of relationships for the two countries. And of course, these two countries, I understand, are quite dominant in the region. So, of course, it would be really impactful for the entire Middle East as well, the outcome of that. But then some not so nice news. I mean, it's a bit sad. So Israel and Palestine, they are at it once again, it seems.
Well, I've been listening to how the mainstream media has been covering this, and of course, they start off by saying militants in Gaza have fired at least 35 rockets into Israel in one of the most intense flare-ups in months. And what they don't show is the backdrop or the context. People don't just suddenly wake up one morning in Gaza and say, oh, let's hurl a few bombs at Israel, a few missiles. No, there's this latest has been triggered by days of tension over in Jerusalem, where far-right groups and the Israeli police have clashed with Palestinians. And this has been the trigger for that, and Israel has really serious problems with its far right Jewish groups, and they need to sort it out. So, as a result of that, some rockets were launched early today. And Israel has retaliated, and so the cycle of violence goes on. But they've been using fighter jets and Apache attack helicopters with their Hellfire missiles in one of the most densely populated places in the world. And it is criminal, absolutely criminal, to do that, because women and children and innocent men will get caught up in that. And of course, Israel has said, well, we've just bombed a few strategic Hamas points. Well, there's 2 points there. The rockets apparently were fired by the PFLP, which is the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. And so they weren't Hamas rockets, which is what Israel often says. And of course, the other point is, military-wise, this is the 4th largest army in the world, and it is turning its immense firepower on this tiny coastal enclave, which, as I said before, is just civilians will be hurt, and so it's and as the violence in Jerusalem spiked on Thursday, as hundreds, when I'm talking about these far right Israelis, there was hundreds, literally hundreds of them, marching down the streets, chanting "Death to Arabs." I mean, it's quite clear what their intentions are, and there should be world condemnation. The Palestinians must be terrified, and as they have these hundreds of this mob chanting "Death to Arabs," and then they are confronted with mounted police in riot gear, who anywhere else in the world would be protecting the Palestinians. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that in Israel. And it's 100 people have been injured, more than 20 have gone to hospital, and the Israeli police say that they've made over 50 arrests. Of course, it won't be 25 Israelis and 25 Palestinians. You can bet your bottom dollar about 90% at least will be Palestinians. And then, so you've got this hell going on in Jerusalem, and then you've got airstrikes over Gaza. So it really is shocking.
Yeah, I think it's such a situation should actually be monitored, in the days coming, the days to come, because I'm sure you would recall in 2014, in the Ramadan of 2014 as well, there was similar tensions, and it actually escalated quite severely. And the result of this, whoever is responsible for it, I think civilians at the end are the ones who actually have to bear the brunt of the violence. Just looking at some of the comments, so I see a comment here from Rahma Rafia Beg, who says this is outrageous. Thank you so much for tuning in, Rahma, and we do hope that you are enjoying the show thus far. Just quickly, a final story which we could look at before I let you go, Dr. Ridley, is Yemen. That story has, for the past few years, I mean, it's a really sad situation in that Middle Eastern country, and it's quite sad. The situation just seems to be worsening. The pictures that come out of there, are really sad. When we look at them, and of course that really you cannot even imagine what the situation must be like on the ground, in fact. So children in Yemen are actually struggling to survive at the moment. Half of all children under the age of 5 are said to be likely to suffer from malnutrition in 2021.
These children should be headline news every day, day in, day out, and they're not. And the reason I believe why suddenly the spotlight is on the children of Yemen is during the Oscars or the Academy Awards. There's been a call to action to highlight the atrocity of the famine in Yemen, and this follows an Oscar nominee for the best short film called The Hunger Ward, which this short film shows the horror of child starvation in Yemen, and that has actually made people sit up and ask questions about what on earth is going on in Yemen. It's a war that doesn't attract a lot of media attention, and in a way it's linked to your first story, which is the talks between Saudi and Iran, because the one thing both these countries have in common is the Yemen war and their part that they've played in this dreadful war, which has created the biggest famine in modern history. So, and it's 6 years in the making, this civil war. It's been an unrelenting, brutal conflict between the Saudi-led coalition fighting the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. And of course, the real story is that children have not only died from bombs in this war, but they are dying in their tens of thousands from malnutrition. We're in the 21st century and children are dying of starvation. What a shame that is on all of us.
And in fact, over the course of the last few months, there's actually been discussions about South Africa's role in this war and perpetuating this war, although indirectly. But it is a really sad situation there. But that's where we're going to have to leave it for today. We'll I hope to join you once again next week. Thank you so much for your time.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, and salam and peace to everyone.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was Dr. Yvonne Ridley, a journalist and in fact, particularly at the Middle East Monitor. She's a columnist there, and she's speaking to us about the latest developments over the last week. Also, in the Muslim world, quite a sad situation, many sad stories coming out there. But one positive is that, Saudi Arabia and Iran have been able to, hold peace talks, and Dr. Ridley quite optimistic about that. Just looking at some of the comments here again, once again, Sister Rahma Rafia Beg says the media attention is quite poor. We hardly have much coverage, and I think that's in reference to the situation in Yemen. And I mean, even with the situation in Palestine, I think it's quite similar. The global mainstream media has actually been quite slow to report on the tensions and attacks that are now taking place in Gaza, and of course the tensions that are taking place as well in Jerusalem. But that's really we're going to be discussing that a little bit later on in the show. In fact, we're going to be joined live from a journalist in Gaza, and he's going to be speaking to us about the situation to give us an update on what really is going on there. And of course, it's time for us to take a quick ad break right now. And when we get back, we're going to play you a clip of Nasiha. And of course, this time it's from Maulana Sulaiman Baji, pre-recorded as well. And the topic today is love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please do stay tuned.